Good morning. I hope you're having a great start to the week, safe and healthy. So we finished the book of Vayechi last week, the book of Genesis with the portion of Vayechi, and now we go on to the book of Shemot, which in English is called Exodus, because we read about the Exodus of the Jewish people. The word Shemot means names, and it's a little bit, for me, it was always, I remember studying in yeshiva, going from Genesis, which was so interesting, so many stories, the formation of the Jewish family, so to speak, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and the patriarchs and matriarchs, and suddenly you go into Shemot and it starts on a sad note. The Jewish people are exiled. Suddenly Pharaoh forgets, either it's a new Pharaoh or he makes believe he's new and he forgets all that the Jews added to Egypt and to the culture and how much they saved them from famine, etc., etc. But, in every darkness, there's tremendous light. And the hero of the book of Exodus, as the entire Torah, is Moses. We call it Torah Moshe, the Torah of Moses, the book of Moses. And Moses is introduced to us in this week's Torah portion. Moses is born. We read about the story of Moses in the basket and how his mother tries to save him from Pharaoh's decree that all the Jewish boys should end up in the Nile River. And we'll have many days to speak about Moses and his character. But before we get there today, I wanted to speak about something interesting, and that is the birth of Moses and how we're introduced to his parents. It's very enigmatic because in this week's Torah portion, the Torah says a verse, Vayikach ish mi beis Levi, a man from the house of Levi, from the tribe of Levi, took a woman from the tribe of Levi, and they had a child, Moses. And the question, of course, all the commentaries ask in a very puzzling way, is why does the Torah tell us that a man from the house of Levi took a woman from the house of Levi without telling us who they are? Tell us their names. In fact, Amram and Yocheved were not just ordinary people. They were the leaders of the Jewish people. And they were household names from the tribe of Levi. But yet, when the Torah introduces them, it doesn't tell us their names. It doesn't say that the father of Moses was Amram and the mother was Yocheved. Only later on, in the next portion, where the Torah speaks of the genealogy of the tribe of Levi, does the Torah say, by the way, it was Yocheved and Amram. Why doesn't the Torah introduce us to these people? And the message is really a very simple but profound one. And I think it's important for all of us as parents to understand in the way we view our children and the faith we have in them. The Torah says that the reason why the rabbis don't introduce Moses with his parents' names is because, let's be real, Moses is the greatest leader in the Jewish people. But in order to create and in order to nurture and in order to raise a Moses, you don't have to be the greatest leader. You could just be an ordinary man and an ordinary woman. Just a guy, a regular guy from the house of Levi had a child, and that child grew up to be Moses. So many times as parents, we think to ourselves when we say, you know what, I have all these issues and maybe I wasn't so successful in my life, etc., etc. And in a certain sense, we project that on our children. We don't have the faith. We don't understand that we could actually have a Moses. We could have a leader that changes the trajectory of the world, that makes a huge impact. It doesn't have to be the greatest Einstein or the Baal Shem Tov to create a Moses. And that's why the Torah specifically doesn't say Vayikach who it was. It just tells us there were parents. And you know who their child was? Moses. I remember a fascinating story I heard. This goes back many years when the Rebbe sent his first emissary to Australia. He came for a meeting. He came from Australia. He didn't come often. And he came to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe encouraged him that when he goes back, he should make a course in family purity, in the laws of Jewish family purity. Well, the guy was wondering, the rabbi, he was going to a secular community. What are they, the woman family purity? He didn't think they were up to it. They would be able to, but the Rebbe tells him, so he does it. And he advertised, he got all these nice postcards done, etc., etc., and he advertised a course in family purity. Well, guess what? You know what they say when you're a rabbi and you do an event or anyone, what's the worst thing that could happen? Is one person comes. Because if nobody comes, then you could say it was a great success and you go home and you don't have to worry about anything. But if one person comes, you got to do it and there's no one there. Well, guess what? This rabbi made a course in family purity, did a 6-week class, and only one woman came. One woman. And he was dejected and upset. And a year later, he came back to New York to visit the Rebbe, and he gave a report of everything going on. But he didn't mention this course he was giving because he felt very uncomfortable and insignificant. It was a failure. And after the Rebbe reads his note and discusses, the Rebbe looks up at him and says, "How did you do the course in family purity?" He says, "Yeah." The Rebbe says, "How was it?" So he looks down on the floor. He's a little dejected, and he says, "Only one person came." And the Rebbe looked at him, and in the most profound vision and impact the Rebbe always had, the Rebbe said, "How many mothers did Moshe Rabbeinu have? How many mothers did Moses have?" And what the Rebbe was saying was, you think your class was a failure. You think it was insignificant because just one woman came, and maybe she wasn't, the biggest macher. But do you know who the next Moses is going to be? Moses had one mother, and you don't know who that mother could be. And the point of the message is that each and every one of us has the power when we believe in our children. We don't have to push them more than they're supposed to. We don't have to push them where they can, but we have to have faith in their abilities to succeed and to change the world. And when we believe in them, who knows who the next Moses is, who the next parent of Moshe is going to be? Who knows if it's us? But when we have that faith and we have that courage, and we nurture our children with love, with joy, then the possibilities are endless. And that's the message that the Torah gives us without telling us the names of who Moses' parents were. And I'll finish off with a short note from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Akavi Mahalala was one of the greatest sages. And when he was about to pass away, his son came to visit him. And his son said to him, he was a great sage, he was very famous. His son says to him, "Listen, maybe you speak to your colleagues that they should bring me close. They should give me a good bench in the yeshiva. I should be up front, etc., etc. And that I should have some leverage from who my father was." And his father looks at him and says, "No." And his son says, his father's on his deathbed, some love for the son. The son turns to his father and says, "Shema yesh bi psul, did I do something wrong that I don't deserve? That my father who loves me so much should use some of his cloud to get me moving in life?" And the father looked at him and says, "There's nothing wrong with you. But listen to this carefully. Ma'asecha yikarvucha v'ma'asecha yirchochuka." You want to know what will get you successful and what will get you in life and what not? It's your deeds. Your good deeds. If you act like a mensch, if you behave in a certain way, then you don't need my cloud. You'll be there. And if you don't behave in a certain way, then that will distance you. You could think Kabim Mahalala was on his deathbed. He could have just showed his son some love. But it wasn't about love. He didn't want to show his son love necessarily only. He wanted to also teach him a lesson. He wanted to inspire him and tell him your actions could change the world. You could make the difference in who you're going to be. It's not who your parents are. It's not in what circumstances. It's you and your actions that make the difference in who you're going to be. And that's what we have to nurture our children with. We have to let them know that the sky is the limit. And they could be the next Moses, the next Baal Shem Tov, the next Einstein, the next person who's going to impact the world. It's all about the effort they put in, the action that they take in becoming better people. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.